Hey guys, in an effort to not have this new vlog go like the last couple have, I'm actually filming an opening even though it is, what time is it? After 11 p.m. This is my, what is this? Oh yes, Secret Garden Into the Bright Open vlog for the Remixed Classics Read Along I'm hosting. So, starting with the Secret Garden, I actually didn't get to film any clips of it, and I listened to the audiobook, but I did put some notes or comments on the chapters in the read along I did on Storygraph. So I'll read some of that to you while I visit the Brooklyn Public Library, a particular branch to return a book. I was listening to The Secret Garden then. Okay, so for the first section, chapters 1 through 9, or even before I started, I realized I had been conflating this book with Flowers in the Attic, and if you've read that, you know they are not the same. But Mary's situation is so odd and honestly quite boring, but you still feel a little bad for her. Did we need this much detail before she even got to her uncle's house? I don't think so. Anyway, it took this long to get to the garden, and I think it's a bit convenient to have a Robin show her not only where it is, but the key and the hidden doorway too. Then for chapter 16, the reason for the noises Mary has been hearing is a surprise. I was expecting a baby, but I couldn't figure out why they'd be hiding one. Let me tell you, if these two kids keep arguing, I might have to DNF. This boy is like the one in Wuthering Heights, and the arguing is too similar. Both just insufferable children, with the girl being slightly more tolerable. Why do people think this book is entertaining? Well, that's done. Luckily, they got this kid outside. The descriptions of the gardens got repetitive, but still beautiful. We got some nice quotes from Colin about magic, and several people about the lady with the 12 kids. I forgot her name, but she definitely knew about child rearing. Um, Also, some good comments about the power of positive thinking. I appreciate the ending too, especially the part from the old gardener's point of view. I'm glad this all ended on a positive note. It was heartwarming. So, at this point in time, I have already finished The Secret Garden, which I had never read before. I listened to an audiobook. I will put it on the screen here now. And that was interesting. I listened to it at the end of last month. It is September. Um and it got off to a slow start, and then the ending I feel paid off pretty well. So Into the Bright Open, I didn't know where this was gonna go because Secret Garden was definitely the one story I had no inkling as to what it was about. Not only had I not read it, I had no clue. I've never seen any adaptation of any kind, not a play, not a song, not a movie, not a TV show, nothing. I didn't know what it was about. Hey, editing Lashette here to let you know that because this is the first time I've ever read The Secret Garden and any adaptation, let alone watched or heard any adaptation of it, this will be my first HRCYED vlog, the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. Not the first one I filmed, but the first one you guys see. So HRCYED, This will fit the prompt to read a classic and an adaptation. I've been doing the remix classics. If you're here for HRCYED content only, um, I gave myself in 2024 this 9 month of read along to read the remix classics, which are remixes of or retellings of classics from a BIPOC and or LGBTQIA plus lens by BIPOC or LGBTQIA plus authors. And I could have, for the past several months, put several other of my remix classics books plus the original classics with them, but like I said, since I've never read this before, I thought I'd save it for The Secret Garden and Into the Bright Open. So enjoy and look forward to other HRCYED prompts coming soon. So upon finishing, I have Into the Bright Open, the remix classic, and this is by Cherie Dimaline. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I also didn't know what this would be about or what the remix would be. I've never read anything by this author. I had never even heard of this author. Turns out this author is Métis. I think that's the pronunciation. Canadian Native Indigenous descent. It's late. I'm forgetting the term that is used in Canada, so they don't say Native American. Cherie is a registered and active member of the Georgian Bay Métis community. So the only reason I know about that, well, not that specific locations community, but about the Métis is because I've read a anthology comic collection from various Indigenous authors in Canada, and I also read a comic series, a historical comic series that gave me some historical bullet points, essentially, of this Indigenous community in Canada, or what is now Canada. So, that being said, I was like, oh, that's different. I have so far read 82 pages, and I would like to continue. Because, as usual, these are short. I just didn't have space to do like a wrap up. So, we're following Mary again. And, yes, Mary. She, similar to The Secret Garden, her parents pass away, but she was brought up in, hold up, let me get the city right, because this is in 1901 in Canada, Toronto. Okay, she grew up in the city of Toronto by wealthy, somewhat neglectful parents, not to the extent that Mary and The Secret Garden's parents were like, but still. And they pass away, so she is now under the care of her uncle, her father's brother, who she's never met, didn't even know existed, but he's not home. The big difference here is that he is married. He married again and has a second wife now who is not currently around yet. Um, in the original, there was no second wife. Like, the uncle just never remarried after his wife passed away and never saw his son. So, however, we've already met the uncle's child, Mary's cousin, and it's a girl this time, not a boy. Uh, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. She is kept in a room to herself, said to be sickly, but none of that, like, possible back spine issues thing is coming up from the secret garden. And the part I got to, Mary was just getting into gardening, and I'm a little confused about that. So, like, she gets into it after she meets her cousin, whose name I'm forgetting right now. But I'm like, well, why? Because she's not bored like she was in the secret garden with literally nothing else to do. Also, this Mary seems to be nicer, but I had my doubts about how rude or mean or cold, there we go, that's the word that was used, how cold of a child the Mary in the original Secret Garden actually was. So, I don't know. That's my update for now. I feel like I'm enjoying this better because we didn't spend like 100 or so pages on how crappy Mary's life was and how nobody paid attention to her and how she was seen as cold, and then all of this time spent on her not doing anything or not knowing what to do with herself in this new house after she gets there in the moors or whatever. So it's less of a downer. So I wonder if the payoff in the end is going to seem as heartwarming or as important because of that. I don't know. I mean, I guess I would be okay with it because I didn't really enjoy the slow dreariness of the beginning of the Secret Garden. So it is what it is. We're in Georgian Bay, which I should look up actually. Okay, I'll put a map if I can. But the Georgian Bay is in the northeast quadrant of Lake Huron, which is in Ontario, Canada, which makes sense because that's just to the north of Toronto. I live in New York City, so Toronto's like the closest major city in Canada for me. Um, so on the other side of Lake Huron, you cross the water border between the two countries, and you can get to Michigan, the state of Michigan. Anyway, so this is like, particularly back then, I don't know if it is now. Looking at Google Maps, it says there's like a national park there, so it might still be, but it's 2024 now. It's been over a century, so who knows. But heavily forested area, very green, and lots of trees. The gardens already described are different, and like they're walled up. They all have walls. And they seem to be separate entities within the forest, but still on the property. So it's a different environment entirely. Whereas in a secret garden. They're in the English moors, which, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But the way I've seen some pictures and some videos, and the way they're described in the books as well, it just seems like really big hills, lots of grassy area, and in the spring or flowering seasons, you get lots of flowering plants as well, right? So not like the plains, but similar to the plains we have here in the U.S., but hilly. So like yeah, not a tree in sight really. So what's funny is this guy. We're in Ontario, Canada, but dude is like, I want English gardens. Hence why they need to be walled off, because the forest would take over. So yeah, very interesting. Come back when I have another update. Now that I can read more.
This is the train to Stanton. The next station is Larchmont. This is the train to Stanford. The next station is Mamaroneck.
Come with me, quick. No, go away. I don't want you. Yes, I go now.
Do you know anything about your uncle?
Only that he is my guardian.
Did your father or your mother never talk about him?
No, they didn't talk to me about things.
Well, you're going to a queer place. Well, not that it isn't a grand house in a gloomy sort of way. It's 400 years old and it's on the edge of a moor. It's nigh on 100 rooms in it, but...
The one on the other side of the wall. I saw the top of the trees there. And a bird with red on his front was singing in the orchard. Come when you call him.
Aye, that he will. I've known him ever since you were a fledgling.
So this is several months later, and I am a little ashamed to say this, but yes, I finished the book. However, I don't remember if I ever had to have filmed any wrap-up clips. If I did, I accidentally deleted them and don't remember doing so. And I don't have the book anymore. I just finally got around to editing this vlog and realized I'm missing stuff. So let's let's talk about it. What I can remember. Before I get into that, though, I will say since then I have watched the movie YouTube, and let me see. The Secret Garden movie. This came out in 1993, it looks like. I think that's the one I watched. Yeah, because there was one that came out in 2020. Don't know. Maybe I should try that one. Because wow, what's the DNF? This movie, I was bored. I got to the part when she found the secret garden, and a little bit after that, it wasn't holding my attention at all. Even attempting to watch it while like doing other chores and stuff was not working. Maybe I'll try and watch because it's on Tubi TV. It's for free, so we shall see. First, I did have like a midway check-in, I think, on Storygraph and the read-along for this book. I've been too busy to update here, but I found it interesting that there are significant changes, like a stepmother, the uncle's new wife, and Mary meeting her cousins first. I'm wondering what the changes to the genders of Olive and Sophia will bring. But I have to say that Mary doesn't seem as objectionable as in the Secret Garden. So hearing her comparing herself to the aunt, I was like, no, girl. And honestly, that does help me a little bit. So the aunt is pretty horrible. I particularly remember one scene with a painting she got made of herself in secret, and she got gypped, though she didn't know it, and the painter made her look horrible. But she loved it anyway, and it was this huge, big, gaudy painting, and she replaced the mother, the first wife's painting with it. But the painters came, the delivery guys came, and they were like, where do you want us to put it? And she wanted them to hang it, and they were like, we weren't paid for hanging. And she tried to bully them into it, but she's a little woman and they are day laborers, so that didn't work out. So she bullied Mary and the maid, I forget her name, into doing it. And then she wouldn't listen to them, so it fell on her foot. I think it broke her foot. It was a whole ridiculous thing. But yeah, she wouldn't listen to them when they were like, we don't think it's secure. And then after it fell on her foot, she wouldn't let them help her. And then when the guy who was tutoring Mary, who she hired from the city, who's from some kind of money or whatever, came just in after that, she totally changed faces and was like, oh, a damsel in distress, and I told them we shouldn't leave it like that's not secure enough, but they wouldn't listen to me. So yeah, I remember talking about this as I'm talking about it now. I must have deleted those clips, but anyway, there is a female lesbian, assumedly lesbian relationship here, but not sexual, because they're underage. But it's very interesting, and it was really sweet. I also so that was some of the influence of Olive being a girl here, and the cousin wasn't as annoying. Like, I think I mentioned it. Mary and Sophie and her cousin were absolutely annoying brat children, but it was funny because they were kind of pit at each other, not by the adults. They found each other and then didn't want to be separated, but also like didn't want to put up with each other's bullshit. So yeah. With this, we're dealing with the evil stepmother figure essentially, and so they're not really pit against each other because of their attitudes. And like I said, Mary is not as much of a brat here. She's not. Let me take that back. She's not even really a brat in the original. Just very standoffish, and I guess a little too adult for her very young age. And I think that came from mimicking her mother, who was very immature for her age, but got away with it as an adult and the wife of a wealthy man. And this one, the end is just as poignant and as sweet. I liked it better just because we got a little bit more time with the uncle after he arrived. Honestly, the ending of this kind of reminds me of Annie. So like she's living in this rich house or whatever, but there is someone that tries to get her away, tries to get her taken away. The indigenous aspect comes more in how the stepmother treats them versus the rest of the other staff members, or how she talks about them versus the other people in town. And so I think it made for a bigger gap, a class and racial gap even, than in the original. So the consequences of you know, oh my goodness, I don't remember this woman's name and I feel bad. Of the maids' actions when they get found out, like they do in the secret garden, they're helping the cousin. It's okay. I mixed up. Olive is the cousin. Sophia is the maid's sister. Sophie. And saying they're indigenous, they're Métis, indigenous people, particularly in Canada, that are still around today, in case you weren't sure. Let's see, how do we pronounce it?
Two different ways of pronouncing it. This is originally a French word for people of mixed blood, is how it is said in French, and in French it is pronounced as métis. Métis. Therefore, some pronounce it the French way as métis, but in English it is often also pronounced as métis. Métis with a silent S. Métis, especially in Canada, for example, it is often said as métis, or
there's another one.
It can be said also the French way as métis. Here,
Métis, I guess, is probably how they would pronounce it since this is set in Canada. Like, the aunt tries to get her sent away. She fires the maid that helps her, and she tells the police in town that the maid has been stealing from her, which has bigger consequences as an indigenous woman. And since still in this story, that maid, her income provides a lot for her whole family. And I think she also says that the Sophie has been stealing stuff as well, like plants and things like that for the garden. So like there's all these thoughts about we should run away together and all of these things. And she tries to get Mary locked up. Like she's crazy. And the uncle arrives just in time to find out everything that's going on. Because the head gardener, I forget his name, but he went to go look for him. So there were bigger consequences because we have like a bad guy here, where in Secret Garden there's not really. And you can take from that what you will. I don't think it's a bad thing. It makes for in my opinion, a more compelling story. The garden aspect is different. I appreciate the Secret Garden because of the variety and the details we go into about the land and the garden, things like that. Now we're in Canada, and it's not the same. And the situation with the gardens are not the same. This doesn't go into as much detail about gardening and flowers and plants and things. It's more of a connection, with the land. I didn't feel like the garden was quite as important, but maybe that's on purpose because now he has a new wife and she has, made it that way rather than his grief by itself. So we have like not just an antagonist, but a villain to dislike in this, which made for something different. Overall, I gave this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I would like to read more of Cherie DeMilline's writing because I've never read anything from this before. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I know a lot of people have read many of the Remixed classics. I hadn't heard anything about this particular one. I think out of all of the classics that have been remixed, this is probably the least popular out of the 9. But I implore people to check this out. So yes, that is my thoughts on that one. Guys, we only have one more vlog to go. One more remix classic. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the notification bell so you know when the next video is coming. Links in the description to everything I mentioned. Also, links to my Storygraph and Instagram if you'd like to follow me anywhere else. Links to my Storygraph and Goodreads if you'd like to know what I'm reading, when I'm reading it, and be my friend on those things. Maybe buddy read, or do read-alongs like we did here this year. And also links to my Instagram and Twitter accounts if you'd like to follow me anywhere else. There's also a 10% off discount code to my Etsy shop where I make all natural bath and body products. I was making fulfilling orders in between filming, so make them for magical and mundane purposes. And I also offer tarot and oracle card readings. These are some of my decks behind me as always. So that 10% off discount code is not just for the holidays, it is for my YouTube followers. So check it out, guys. Thank you, as always, so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Bye.